We're going back 100 million years now to see just exactly how it was that the Himalaya mountains arose. As Gondwana land broke up, we see India and Madagascar in the center of this map, forming islands between, well, basically what is Australia and Antarctica on one side and Africa on the other. Madagascar splits from India, and it's about this time that we see the Deccan traps beginning their volcanic activity, and the Shiva crater gets formed. For millions of years, there was periodically lava oozing up at this point, at the Deccan traps. And one of the things that might have set it off was the Shiva meteorite. Now, I'm calling it the Shiva meteorite because its resulting crater is called the Shiva crater, and it's offshore. It's underwater so that you can't get any clear views of it, but there are a couple of very interesting things about it. First of all, the Deccan traps and the Shiva crater both occurred at roughly the same time, about 65, 66 million years ago. And that coincides with when the dinosaurs were wiped out. Actually, there were probably about 3 meteoroids that hit close to 65, 66 million years ago. There's a very small one in Ukraine called the Baltish. And the larger one, the one that's usually associated with the destruction of the dinosaurs, is just off the Yucatan Peninsula, Chicxulub. However, the largest one, the one that's 500 kilometers across, that's Shiva. And Shiva should have been a really, really big impact. The shock of the meteor displaced the Carlsberg Ridge, and it initiated a rifting between India and the Seychelles. It was a bleak impact coming from the southwest and headed towards the northeast, not a direct impact on the Earth. And the result was it seems to have caused a sudden northward acceleration of the Indian plate. It's about this time that India accelerates towards Asia. The dinosaurs are gone now, and India is speeding towards Asia, and it's just about ready to hit. India moves towards Asia, striking it at about 45 million years ago, and it begins to subduct, that is, go underneath the Asian continent. Now, this has some fairly significant effects. For one thing, it starts to push up the Himalayas, but in addition to that, it's also elevating the Tibetan Plateau. And this is not an isolated event, because if you look over towards Europe, you'll see that essentially the same thing is happening along a very long line. From the Alps all the way out to Southeast Asia, there are mountains being built up by continents that are moving to the north and smashing into Eurasia. All in all, about 2,000 kilometers of the Indian subcontinent is lost to the collision with Asia. About 50% of that loss, it goes into building up the Himalaya mountains and the Tibetan Plateau, and another 50% goes into forcing China and Mongolia a little bit further to the east. At the point where the Indian plate is underneath the Asian plate, the thickness of the Earth is roughly twice its normal thickness, about 60 to 70 kilometers thick. Now, all that mountain building does have an impact on the weather. First of all, the rainfall starts to weather the mountains down a little bit. The rainfall is slightly acid. The result of that is that some of the minerals are picked up in the water as it heads out to the ocean. A lot of the salt, about 25% of all the salt that's going into the oceans is coming from rivers that were formed as a result of the collision between India and Asia. The rainwater forms a kind of carbonic acid, and that's partly what's doing the dissolving. But that formation of carbonic acid is reducing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and this is going to have an impact on the temperature of the Earth. As you're about to see, the temperature of the Earth has generally been much higher than it has been recently. The last 50 million years or so, it's been quite cool compared to previous temperatures. And one of the things that you can note is that the temperature drops pretty significantly at about 45 million years ago, at about the time when India struck Asia. So that means that if you're interested in stopping global warming and reversing it, all you have to do is to slam another continent into Asia and build up a huge mountain chain, and that should take care of your problem. We're in Nepal, headed for Mount Everest, but first, from Kathmandu, I'd like to take the cable car up to a mountain and then look around the old town. The cable car is actually made in Austria, and it looks extremely sturdy, so I have a lot of confidence in this one. Once at the top, I discovered that we were celebrating a festival, a religious festival of some kind, but I'm not entirely clear on just exactly what the festival is or what it's for. Nepal is a very religious place. There are shrines and temples everywhere, and people do visit them on a fairly regular basis for as far as I can tell. In fact, a very regular basis. This is the prayer wheel that you normally associate with Tibet. As you spin the wheel, the prayers that are inscribed on the wheel are sent directly to heaven. And this temple reminds me so much of St. Mark's in Venice. It has the pigeons, and there's even a lion on a pedestal, the symbol for St. Mark's and apparently for this temple as well. And this is the palace. This was a monarchy up until just a few years ago. It's no longer a monarchy. Like old cities in Europe, the downtown streets are quite narrow. But unlike Europe, the Nepali streets are just full of electrical wires. And food is sold on just about every street, it seems. In 2015, there was a major earthquake here that left almost all the buildings badly damaged. This is an ancient fountain, but it's still in use. I'm told that they don't use the water quite so much for drinking as they do for washing.